Nick is the 5th survivor in XP mod, and what do I feel like I'm forgetting? Nah, pretty sure it's nothing. Well, anyway, Nick is a gambler, but also is basically the closest thing we have to a medic right now. There is going to be a medic character in Zoe, like a proper medic, not like Bill, although technically Bill isn't actually called a medic. I don't know why I thought he was called a medic, he's called a support. Anyway, Nick in this mod is a character with some very obvious and powerful strengths, but as well as that, some very, very glaring weaknesses. And pile that on top of the fact that, of course, being a gambler, he has RNG elements, this may be one of the highest variance characters you could play. You see, Nick's main problem is that he is probably the only survivor, I would say, out of the 6 you can pick at the moment, that actually really gets screwed by just commons. Arguably Ellis too, but I don't know, since Ellis is buff, I feel like he's gotten a lot better at dealing with commons, whereas Nick is still absolutely getting bullied by them.
Oh, not again. Wow. Ah! Get it off me! Get it off! I need somebody's help just for 5 seconds. Come on, I'm in a hurry. Get it off me! Get it off! Screw it, run!
The reason for this is the fact that Nick specializes in pistols, especially the Magnum, which of course takes up your secondary slot, meaning that you cannot have a melee. And melees are extremely useful in dealing with common hordes, especially in this mod where you can get tiny commons and huge commons that have more health and all that. Having to deal with that with a pistol, it's pretty frustrating. It probably wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the fact that you kind of have to use the Magnum specifically as well. Because although Nick is also stronger with the dual-wield pistols, he is definitely strongest with the Magnum in general. That doesn't mean that the dual-wield pistols aren't a valid option though, because of the fact that Nick's greatest weakness is his ability to tackle hordes. The fact that the dual-wields are better against hordes does make them usable, but still, you would rather have the Magnum whenever you can. You see, Nick's Magnum is especially bad against hordes, not only because the Magnum's bad against hordes to begin with, but also because when Nick uses it, he only gets 3 bullets in a clip, which this probably is sounding terrible right now. What benefit could possibly make that worth it? Well, let me tell you, you get 375% more damage per shot. I remember the Magnum technically isn't that bad DPS for a secondary that isn't a melee already. So basically, to put this in perspective, the Magnum would usually do 80 damage. With this damage boost, it will do 380 damage per shot, which, just to put that in perspective, 1-shot headshot on a charger is dead. So yeah, 380 damage is nothing to sneeze at. It will kill most special infected in 1 shot, and it will definitely kill all special infected with 1 headshot. The only problem is, of course, not missing, because this thing has a kind of slow reload time. It does reward you for not missing. If all 3 of your shots in your clip land, then you get double reload speed for the next reload, which is pretty useful, but of course, it's kind of a pipe dream that you're going to hit all those shots. Yeah, if you're good at the game, then you can easily do that if there's no commons on you, but even if you are good at the game, if there's a bunch of commons on you shaking your screen constantly, you're not going to hit all 3 shots all the time. It's going to be pretty rare that you actually land all 3 of them with spread and all that. Meanwhile, the dual-wield pistols only get a minor buff. Well, I say minor, it is actually quite major, but considering how bad they start off, this doesn't make them very good in the context of this mod. It gives them double damage, double reload speed, and double clip size. So that obviously is quite a lot of buffs, double almost everything. But of course you've got to remember that that's double the already starting terrible damage of the dual-wield pistols. So yeah, mostly just for dealing with commons. Some people say that Nick's Magnum is OP in XP mod. I would disagree because I've already mentioned how much of a significant downside it is trying to use the Magnum to deal with commons. And even if you pick a primary that's better than dealing with commons, it's not going to be as good as a melee. Sacrificing a melee really hurts. But, of course, I can still see kind of where they're coming from. I think it's more that when it's good, it's really good. I'm obviously talking about Charger. I made a bit of a point of talking about them in this section because basically they, in XP mod, are considered one of the best special infected at the moment. And while I wouldn't agree they're the best, even though most people seem to think that, I definitely think they're up there. They definitely have the capabilities to pull off some game-winning moments just by getting people stuck in certain positions where they can be really abused. And so that means that whenever you do have one of those moments where you're quick enough on the trigger that you can kill a charger before it manages to cause one of these game-ending moments, it is really, really good for you, and really, really bad for them. Here's a good example right here. Now, I imagine you would say this is a charger. However, I don't believe Nick would say that. Nick, what do you think it is?
Scrawny little bitch, I'm gonna kill!
That's poggers. Oh, that's poggers!
On this topic, though, there is one other buff that Nick gets with pistols that before I often forgot existed, but now I'm actually starting to find a whole lot more useful. And that is the fact that Nick can actually shoot his teammates with the pistols to heal them instead of damage them. This only applies if you're Nick using pistols. Don't do it as anyone. Don't. You think you're fucking funny? It's a good idea to do this because it's instant healing, especially when people are limping. It's a nice way to give them instant speed boost. Now, there is a downside to this. You will actually take damage yourself to heal them with your gun. And this is why I was very hesitant to use this for a while, because I didn't know the exact numbers, and I kind of assumed that you were trading health, as in, to heal them 5 health, I would have to give them 5 of my health. But no, it's a positive trade. Even though you lose health and they gain health, overall, more health is gained than health lost. So you're not giving them your health entirely. They are getting more on top of the amount that you've lost. So it works out in the end. And it's also quite useful because I kind of was thinking, oh, it's only like 2 health, 7 health. It's not that big a deal. But you really have to remember that's like per shot, and there's no limit to how many times you can shoot them to heal them. So actually, it's quite significant when you really think about it like that. I've been surprised at the amount of healing I can do with the pistols. And even though it damages you, as you're going to find out later, Nick has access to a lot of medical supplies. So it's useful for when someone isn't aware of the fact that you have loads of medical supplies and you want to, heal them up because they need the healing more than you do. Instead of stopping them to use a med kit, you can just fire your pistols into them and then heal yourself when you take too much damage. Now, one thing you might be surprised I haven't mentioned yet is the elephant in the room right here, this 100 health. The least amount of health a character can have in XP mod at the moment as a survivor. Oops! So, yeah, you may be thinking, especially with the whole rant I went on last video, about how crazy it is that Coach has 300 health, that I should be talking about all the problems only having 100 health in a much more aggressive mod like this causes. Well, that definitely causes problems. I mean, I personally don't think Ellis is overpowered, even though most people do. And that's because he has 100 health for the most part, so I do appreciate that having less health causes a problem. But the reason I don't think it's a problem for Nick is not just the fact that he has a lot of access to healing, but then on top of that, he also has a way to increase his maximum health from 100. Every single time someone uses a medkit on your team that isn't you, and it doesn't matter who they use it on, they can heal you, but as long as the person doing the healing is not you, your maximum health will increase by 15 points. It is limited at 200, so you couldn't break the hell out of it, but in most games, you'll have 130 health, I would say, with Nick. You usually can't get everyone to cooperate and use the medkits at the start, because you will almost always have extra medkits at the start because you would have a medkit as one of your equipments, and then you would have 4 medkits in the safe room. In theory, if you're playing optimally, you should be starting every chapter with 160 health, because everyone's going to have a spare medkit. 4 people. 4 times 15 is 60. Sometimes maybe 145 if someone decided to bring incendiary ammo instead of a medkit as their equipment. But you get the point.
Oh yeah, speaking of uncooperative teammates.
Among Us!
You sussy button.
Hold on a second.
All okay?
Hurry it up.
Got a defib here. Got a defib here.
Why you bullying me? You fucking bitch.
Bruh.
Complain.
Yep, griefers are just something you have to get used to in Left 4 Dead, even more so on a modded server, where you tend to see them more.
Further adding to Nick's surprising survivability is his ability to lifesteal from special infected and tanks that he shoots. Now, this lifesteal doesn't act quite like I expected, like in card games that I played like Eternal, or in RPGs where it's a percentage of the damage or all of the damage you do, you heal. In this case, instead, it's more like a poison effect, where after you shoot something, it takes damage over time and you receive healing over time. So for the next 5 seconds, once you've hit a special infected or tank as Nick, they will lose 25 health over 5 seconds and you will gain 15 health over 5 seconds. Now, I originally wrote this off. In fact, for a while I wrote this off as a pretty ability that Nick could do without. Mostly because I think I focused too much on the damage. 25 damage is not a lot. It really isn't. Like, that's not even enough to kill a boomer. You would need twice that amount to kill a boomer. So 25 damage is kind of pathetic. But what isn't pathetic is that healing, which I didn't really think about at first because I was so focused on the damage, and I'm like, well, if the damage is low, then the healing is also low. But of course, survivors have a much lower health pool than the infected. So actually, having that much health gained just from shooting infected, it's not bad. In fact, if you could do it with common infected, which you can't, but if you could, that would be pretty overpowered to be able to just constantly be healing basically 3 health a second almost all the time. That would be really good. That would be kind of busted. So really the only thing stopping lifesteal from being a completely busted mechanic is the fact that you kill special infected so fast as Nick if you do manage to land a shot on them that you don't usually end up lifestealing from them for long. But it even makes it so even though he's still probably the worst character against tanks, he's not even that bad because even though you can't really kill the tanks on your own very well, you can at least stay alive against them quite well because since they take so many shots, you can almost constantly be stealing life from them so that you're always recovering your health. Oh yeah, speaking of which, yeah, Nick is bad against tanks. Why? Well, I did say that the Magnum was good DPS, but it's very specifically good against special infected. The damage range it does is very good at killing special infected very quickly. It's not so good at killing tanks quickly. It's only really good tank DPS if you can consistently sit down and land 3 consecutive shots in a row and get the quick reload and then do another 3 and get a quick reload and blah blah blah. That's the only point at which it really becomes good tank damage, and even though again tanks are big targets, you may think, oh, I'll just crouch here and I'll keep shooting. If you don't crouch, your spread is wide enough that you're probably going to miss at least one of those 3 shots. If you crouch, then the tank can just run at you and punch you, unless he's just not focused on you. If you don't have either of those problems, you still have the problem of what if commons are hitting you while you're trying to fire, and again, that's going to knock your crosshairs. I know I keep mentioning this, but like, commons knocking you, it's so bad with Nick. Like, I've already complained about it with other characters. I've already mentioned how it's worse than you often think at first. But with Nick, it's actually completely detrimental to have to deal with commons hitting you while you're trying to land shots. Because if there were no commons, you would easily be able to snipe all special infected if you paid attention and were a good player. Just by crouching whenever you hear one spawn, taking a good look around, and being quick on the trigger. You could probably kill most special infected before they even get to attack like that. But that isn't how it is in reality. Almost always, because while you're waiting for them to attack, you're going to be attacked by just commons, and then you're going to have to either ignore the commons and then hope that not one of them doesn't hit you and knock the crosshair out of the way at the worst time, or you're going to have to shoot off the commons, but then while you're shooting off the commons, you're going to reload, and then while you're reloading, they're going to attack. The Magnum has more than enough damage in a clip to kill a special infected, but it then has a pretty bad reload time if you don't land all 3 shots. It's not enough damage to kill a tank in those 3 shots, not even close. Anyway, that was a long tangent. The other reason that Nick is pretty bad against tanks is, again, the fact that he does not have a melee. It's already just in general a good way to punish a dumb tank is to get behind it while it's not paying attention with a melee and just lay into it with a katana. But especially because of the existence of the vampire tank, which takes 1/3 damage from bullets and triple damage from melees, which I'm not a fan of that, I'm gonna be real with you. It basically makes it unkillable if you're Nick, because it already has 8,000 health. It's taking 1/3 damage from all of your shots because you don't have a melee, so that means now it technically has 24,000 health. And then on top of that, the vampire tank can basically fly, and then on top of that, the vampire tank heals when he deals damage, so he's going to have more than 24,000 health to you. If you can just get a melee on it, you can absolutely murder it. One katana slash will do 1,800 damage to it. That's like a quarter of its health bar gone already. So yeah, if you have a melee, the vampire tank, you can deal with it if you can get it to land. But if you don't have a melee like Nick, and you're kind of forced to not have a melee with Nick because, again, one of the best parts about Nick is his Magnum. You can't just not have the Magnum. Yeah, you'll get into a really bad situation. Well, at least Nick gets lots of nice little bonuses for using healing items. He has a 75% chance of getting extra healing items after using a medkit. That means he could get pills, adrenaline, a defib, or most funnily, you can get another medkit. Yes, it is possible, although unlikely, that you can use a medkit, get another medkit, use that medkit, get another medkit, use that medkit, get another medkit, etc. Yeah, when I said this character is high variance, this is one of the parts I was talking about, but we're not even at the main thing that I was talking about when I said that. We'll get to that later. So that is quite useful. It's pretty reliable, even if you don't usually get another medkit off of it, although, again, it happens sometimes. It's pretty reliable that you can rely on it to get you pills or adrenaline, and of course, every now and then, the defib out of nowhere is pretty clutch. But as well as that, when you use any kind of pills or adrenaline, you'll get an extra 30 temporary health on top of what you should be getting anyway, which means that adrenaline is actually now a viable option just to increase your health, instead of just for the speed boost, because it will be 45 health for you now. And as well as that, whenever a teammate besides you uses their pills or adrenaline, you will instantly heal 5 health. And Nick's final passive allows him to benefit from incapped or dead teammates by getting a 10% movement speed boost and a 25% damage boost to his weapons for every single person who is down or dead at that particular moment. Now, it should be that if someone comes back after being incapped or killed, the buff gets revoked. So if someone gets revived, you then lose that 10% movement speed boost and that 25% damage. However, we have had bugs in the past where the speed has not gone away or has been added way more than intended. We've seen some super speed Nicks running around. It should be fixed by now, but if you see yourself moving really, really, really fast, it might still be bugged. Honestly, in my experience, this is very rarely a significant ability, but there is one situation which is very useful, and that is the, oh my god, we're already at the start, and like, literally everyone on my team is already dead. I'm just gonna run and then bring someone back to life at the end. I spoiled one of the things that Nick can do. Yeah, you'll find out more about that in a second. So that at least 2 of us make it. Yeah, that's a strategy, and you know, if 3 people are dead already and you're the last one left, at least you have that big 30% movement speed buff, which I know 30% might not sound like a lot, but remember that is the amount that Rochelle moves faster, and Rochelle is a speedy girl. Alright, we're getting close to the end where we're finally going to talk about Nick's major abilities that make you really want to play him, but we just got a few minor abilities to get out of the way first. Nick can actually swap between his pistols if you have both of them. By pressing the walk key and zoom at the same time, you can swap between weapons. Now, sadly, I don't think I have any footage of this. I don't really use this at all, and I only just started using it, annoyingly, after I already got all the footage, because I thought it was bugged this whole time. When I first started playing Nick, I didn't know you could even do this, because no one really ever seemed to do it. Once I started playing him and figured out that you could do it, I didn't use it because after trying using it a little bit, I thought it was bugged. And it made sense to me at the time because Ellis has the ability to hold 2 primaries, and he uses walk and zoom to swap between his primary weapons. And at the time, that was heavily bugged too, although it should have been fixed by now. I think it has. Because of that, I thought, oh, this must be bugged too, because it doesn't seem to be working. But I think I was just misunderstanding how it works. Because what I was trying to do is, I was like, I want to use a melee with Nick. Can I use the walk and zoom thing to swap back to my pistol when I have a melee, so I can have a melee and a magnum? And that wasn't working. I got the dual wield pistols, but I didn't get the magnum. No matter what I did, no matter how many times I tried to swap, it wouldn't give me the magnum. And I didn't realize that's because I hadn't picked up a magnum, and because I hadn't picked one up, it wouldn't let me swap to it. Now, I know that might sound really obvious, but I hadn't picked up dual wield pistols either, so the fact that I could switch to dual wield pistols made me think I should be able to get to magnum. But I think it's just because the dual wield pistols are a default kind of weapon. You know, like, even if you don't have them, it lets you have them. Like, if you don't have any pistols and you use the ability to switch pistols, I think it just by default gives you the dual wields. So you could either have dual wields in a melee, which is not very convenient, or you can actually have both the magnum and the dual wields and swap between them both if you pick up a magnum and then don't pick up a melee and then just swap between them using the walk and zoom method. So because I only recently found out this isn't bugged and that you actually can use this to both use dual wields to deal with hordes and use the magnum to deal with special infected, I have to assume that this is actually quite a useful ability. It's just that people haven't been using it, either because they didn't know it existed, or they thought it was bugged like me, or they just didn't bother with it. But honestly, I think optimally, now that I've played a little bit with being able to do this, I think that if you're playing Nick optimally, you should actually be using this to swap between the different magnums and pistols, because as I say, the dual wields are so much better at dealing with hordes, and commons will fuck you up, even with the damage of the magnum, if you are just relying on the magnum. And the award for Nick's most useless ability goes to his ability to zoom while holding a medkit to turn it into one random pill bottle / adrenaline shot, one random primary weapon, and one random grenade. Now, that might not sound too bad, but again, this is not vanilla Left 4 Dead, this is XP mod. You can literally pick your starting equipment. So straight away, primary weapon, completely useless in almost all circumstances except completely out of ammo, which is kind of gonna be rare. So that's already one item we don't care about. Then pills or shots, okay, that's fine, but like a medkit is usually better than that. It can be better to take pills or shots if you instantly need health now and you don't have time to use the medkit. But as well as that, if you don't have time to use the medkit, you also probably don't have time to pull out the medkit, zoom while holding the medkit, and then find the shots on the ground after they drop on the ground without picking up the grenade or the weapon, because you probably don't want those things and it'll probably swap out what you already, had that you wanted. And again, you can start with whatever grenade you want, so unless you're using this halfway through a map to get a second grenade after using your first one, the grenade is also useless. This is basically only a desperate, I need health right now, and I can't stop to use a medkit, but I do have just barely enough time to scroll and pick up the pills, even though that still takes time. So very, very, very niche. I never really see anyone using this ability. I only occasionally use it if I'm in a team that is not cooperating and not using the extra medkits, and it's like, well, I may as well turn these extra medkits into some extra pills and shots if no one else is going to use them. But yeah, especially considering that you get more shots and medkits and pills from using medkits, it really feels kind of useless, this ability. And on top of that, when we get into Nick's Bind 1, you're going to see something that makes it seem even more useless. Honestly, I would like to see this one get buffed potentially, but then to be fair, I feel like it would be difficult to buff this without making it then too good, because, well, I know we haven't covered Lewis yet, but I know Lewis can turn a medkit into multiple pills, and I think that's actually one of his strongest abilities. It's very, very powerful. Well, after the clusterfuck of formatting that was the coach video, because it simply didn't make sense to talk about his abilities in order, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that it actually did make sense in this case with Nick to talk about his abilities in order of where they are top to bottom on this list. Up until now, I just realised that I really don't want to talk about Gamble until the very end. So let's talk about his Bind 2 first before his Bind 1, because his Bind 1's going to be a headache. So his Bind 2 is the main reason that you play Nick, unless it's his Bind 1. It depends. They're both pretty crazy. Nick relies on his binds heavily. Heavily. So by pressing your Bind 2 key, you can open up the Jeebus Hand menu, which you can spend your Bind 2 charges to do one of three things. 1. You can provide an instant health boost to everyone on your team, which is definitely the weakest option, but it is the cheapest as well, only taking one charge. I actually do not know the exact amount that it heals. It doesn't say anywhere, and I don't remember off by heart, but it's somewhere around 15 to 20 health. So yeah, only really useful if people are limping and you need to, make sure they're not limping. Or if someone is going to get downed by being pinned by a special infected, and giving that extra health will give them just enough time to avoid being down. So pretty niche, this option. But then for 2 charges, you get the much more useful option of instantly reviving a random teammate. The caveat is that you cannot revive a teammate who is hanging or is still pinned. You have to shoot off the special infected if they're down and pinned, and then you can bring them back with this ability without having to, stand next to them and hold revive. This again, just like with the healing, there's no limit to the distance. It doesn't matter where they are on the map. You can just press this button and they'll get up. But again, you have no control over who it will revive if there are multiple people down. And it can revive yourself. But the big one, the real one we're going to talk about, use all 3 charges of your Bind 2 for that round, all in one spot. You can spend 3 to bring someone instantly back from the dead where you're standing, with the usual 50 health if you get defibbed. And yeah, it's limited to 1 time per game, not only because of the fact that you can only have three bind 2 charges and it costs 3, but also even if you did get more bind 2 charges, it also has a limit of 1 per game anyway. So even if you had 6, you can't use this ability twice. Even if it is just 1, an instant revival that brings someone completely back, removes black and white, like if they were, you know, black and white, I mean obviously they're dead, but you know what I mean. All that is, and also teleporting them to wherever you are, so if you're at the end, you can bring someone who died back all the way to the end. It's very, very, very powerful. If you're playing Nick, you're playing Nick because of this. But that's also why I mentioned before, Nick has extremely high variance, and this is one of the less luck-related reasons why, because God does it feel bad when you're the first one to die as Nick. It's like the entire reason you pick this character is so that when someone died, you can bring them back, but you can't bring yourself back. And when you die, that entire reason that you pick this character gets flushed down the toilet.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would, but I legally can't. But I've considered it.
Get it off!
Oh god, we have to do it now, don't we? We have to talk about the gamble, we have to talk about the salt, we have to talk about the random number generator! Let's begin, shall we? Alright, Nick's bind 1 will do 1 of 12 things, which should be displayed on screen right now, and those things can either be good or they can be bad. Roll a 1 and you'll get in good with a drug dealer and get a free pill bottle. Roll a 2 and you get slapped. You take, I think, 15 damage and it knocks you in a random direction. Roll a 3 and you'll get a shit ton of weapons. Now, this one, I was debating whether I should give it the green or the yellow colour. You might notice that I've coloured all of these. That's just to give you an idea of whether they're positive or negative. So obviously, the greenest one is like really good, the reddest one is really bad, you know, it's kind of the middle. I was debating making this a yellow one, because honestly, this one is usually a downside. But to be fair, it does provide so many supplies that I think I should say it's a light upside. Basically, what this does is, of course, it gives you a shit ton of weapons, including incendiary and explosive ammo. The problem is that usually you don't need those weapons, because again, you've already picked the weapons that you want most, because it's XPM. But then, as well as that, because it gives you incendiary and explosive ammo, that means if you're holding a medkit, it instantly makes you drop your medkit, which, yeah, that's a problem. I think that if this didn't give you explosive ammo, which is actually valuable, this would instantly be neutral, maybe even a slight bad, but I must admit the explosive ammo is useful, especially because you usually get multiple explosive ammo packs, so that can be useful. Roll a 4 and you'll go Rambo, instantly equipping an M60 with explosive ammo and 250 bullets. Now this may sound like an obvious positive, but this is actually being labelled as a neutral, because it has quite a few downsides. There's the obvious downside of now you're not holding the weapon you want to hold, but in fairness, usually the M60 will be better than your normal Magnum, at least with explosive ammo. Without the explosive ammo, maybe not. But the main problem is not that. It is the problem is that once you go Rambo, you cannot gamble until the Rambo wears off, which takes, I don't know exactly how long, but just by feel, I would say at least a minute. That is a big problem, because usually when you're gambling, you're fishing for healing, as you're going to find out, especially later. Usually you only gamble when you're very close to dying or you're already down and you want to find medical supplies to save you. So, this is not what you want in that position. Yeah, it's not a bad thing to have a good gun, but you're not looking for a good gun, you're looking for healing. And if you get this as your first roll and you wanted to use all 3 of your gambles as fast as possible until you got a healing one, well, guess what? You can't gamble for another minute, so hope you don't die in the next minute. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I was tempted to even say it's a negative, but I have to admit, the explosive damage M60 is quite a beast, so it's rarely going to be useful, but when you get it at the right time, it is going to be very useful. Roll a 5 and you'll pop some pills, but sadly, I guess we're not talking about pain pills because it doesn't give you any pills. Instead, it gives you a bad effect. It makes your screen flash annoying, like, bright colours that make it hard to see, and while it's happening, you also take minor damage over time. So yeah, bad news. If you rolled a 6, then someone out there must really hate you, because now you're going to get slapped 5 times, which is going to do a hell of a lot of damage to you, and is going to constantly knock you around, and I believe you can't even be revived while being slapped. You also can't gamble while being slapped. So yeah, this is basically potentially the worst result possible. The only saving grace is that you cannot be downed by this. So if you're already at 1 health, the slaps can no longer damage you, although they still will throw you around and they will still prevent you from gambling more and stuff like that. So yeah, this is also the reason why you only gamble when you're on low health, because it is an extremely high risk if you try and gamble at full health, because if you get this, you're going to lose a lot of health if you weren't already low. Even if you weren't worried about this, there are other gambles that will be wasted if they activate when you have full health. If you rolled a 7, then you're probably pretty happy, because this is basically the reason that you do use gamble in the first place. You'll get to raid a medicine cabinet, which will give you a whole bunch of medical supplies. I'd say that you could pretty confidently assume that if you hit this, you're going to get at least 1 defib, at least 1 medkit, at least 1 set of pills, and at least 1 shot. You're probably going to get more than that. You're probably going to get 2 or 3 of a couple of those. So yeah, pretty good hit, and if you can hit it multiple times, then it can make you ridiculously good at surviving for a long time. If you roll an 8, then you are probably either really happy or really angry. Rolling an 8 gives you another 3 chances to gamble, which, I mean, I know that sounds like nothing but positives, but like the amount of times I've had a game where it's just been like bad gamble, 3 more chances to gamble, bad gamble, 3 more chances to gamble, bad gamble, 3 more chances to gamble, and it feels like the game's just teasing me. Despite that, I have to admit that on average, this is probably a positive. Again, you can just stop gambling if you want, and usually the gambles do come out to a net positive as long as you use them when you're low on health, as I mentioned before. Roll a 9 and you may just end up causing the other team to rage quit, because, whoo boy, roll a 9 and as if rolling a 7 wasn't good enough, it's literally the same as rolling a 7 except there's way more stuff. You're going to get probably 5 defibs, 10 medkits, whatever. You're going to get an infinite supply of healing. The only limit to how much you can heal once you hit one of these is basically the amount of time you can stand around using the healing before you get caught. So yeah, this can lead to some absolutely stupid games where people come back from the dead 9 or more times. And I am not just saying that for hyperbole. I believe the most I've seen is that I have genuinely played a round where I was infected and the survivors did not die until we had killed them 15 times in total, because they came back to life 11 times. It was fucking ridiculous. So anyway, yeah, this is going to cause the infected to rage quit a decent amount, and this is possibly the best hit. There's only 2 other ones that I'd say are in the running for it. Oh, but you thought all the high numbers would be positive. Well, they couldn't get through it without adding one more nasty one in there, and it's a real nasty one. And it's a bit inconspicuous too, because it doesn't sound too bad. You temporarily get blinded by chemicals that go in your eye. Now, this doesn't sound that bad on its own. I mean, it sounds like it's probably going to be very similar to the pills one, and the pills one just makes it annoying. It's more annoying. It just makes it a bit hard to see, and it does some damage over time to you. And this one doesn't even do damage over time to you. It just makes it hard to see. So why is this one so bad? This might be the worst gamble. Again, it depends on the context. It might be the worst one you can get, because it doesn't just make it hard for you to see. It actually makes you 100% completely blind for a few seconds. And then even when you aren't blind anymore, it takes some time for the screen to fade out from black. So yeah, this is terrible. I have been in some nasty situations before where I'm gambling just before I enter the safe room, and then I hit this, and I should easily be able to make it to the safe room, but because I'm blind, I'm walking into walls and stuff like that, and Special Infected are completely abusing how utterly helpless I am for the next few seconds. This is a nasty thing to hit. It depends on the timing. If it comes at a time where it's not too bad, then yeah, it's not going to cause you any damage. Your teammates will take care of you. But if it comes at a bad time, this is basically worse than anything else that you could possibly get. I genuinely think this one is worse than getting slapped multiple times, because at least you get slapped multiple times, you're probably not going to get down. You're just going to take a whole lot of damage, and it's just going to be annoying, if anything. This is actually going to get you screwed, and can potentially even screw over your entire team, even though it only affects you if you're in a position where your team needs to rely on you. Then one of the 3 that's in the running for possibly the best one, Divine Intervention. Quite simple. You roll an 11, you get set to full health instantly. Pretty good, but I personally think that the Mega Hospital is better. Even though this is instant, the Mega Hospital provides such a ridiculous amount of healing that as long as your team doesn't split up and disagree and some go ahead and some stay back to use the healing. If you all stay back to use the healing, yeah, you become basically unkillable. Whereas this just provides you a nice health boost that might be useful given the situation. And of course, this one can be accidentally wasted since there's no, like, it's not an item that you get given, it just happens instantly when you use the gamble. So if you are gambling while on relatively high health, hitting this is actually pretty bad. And finally, if you roll a 12, the final thing that I'd say is in the running for the best effect that you can get off gamble, you get +3 charges to bind 2. Now, this would be crazy busted and an easy pick for me for the best result you can get if that meant that you could revive 2 people, resurrect 2 people, bring 2 people back from being fully dead. But, of course, as I mentioned before, even if you do get those 3 extra charges, they do hard limit it to 1 resurrection per game. That doesn't mean that this is bad, though. That still means that you get another free revive and another free heal to everyone after using a resurrection. So I'd still say it's definitely one of the more powerful ones that you can get.
Now, usually Nick's greatest strength is his ability to just make games go on forever. The survivors just won't die even after making it massive distances. However, that is usually dependent on your gambles. Though I would like to show you a funny little clip of a game where I actually managed to make it really far into a chapter, even with all of my gambles screwing me over. Finally, a moment to breathe and satiate my gambling addiction.
Oh, not again. Come on, come on. You're serious, aren't you? Screw it!
Nice fucking binds. Man, if only Techno didn't get some fucking shit-ass rolls.
That was good, though.
So that's it. You should now know everything you need to go play Nick out there and hopefully kill some chargers with that Magnum. Go make someone regret picking them as their special infected today. Because God knows there's enough people picking Charger.
Oh my god! Wow!
What the fuck is that? Video's already over. Well, yeah, it kind of is. There was more that was supposed to be here. I had one game in particular which was absolutely amazing with Nick, which I just had to show. But it was so amazing and it was so just emblematic of everything that you pick Nick for that I thought I really want to instead try something different and analyze this game in depth with still some edits and basically explain why I did what I did there and also explain how Nick's strengths really helped us in that situation. Now, as amazing as this was a lot longer than I thought. I definitely thought that it'd be a longer segment of the video, but when I was done, it was over 20 minutes long. And I still thought I would put it in the video and it would just end up at a bit of a longer video. But I also genuinely did not expect that besides this analysis, I would have a lot of content. I really thought that everything you just saw in this video would only come out to just under 20 minutes. And of course, it came out a lot longer than that. And so I realized that I really probably shouldn't add this into the video because then it's going to get close to the hour mark. And, you know, even though this is made for entertainment value, definitely, to an extent, it's also as a guide to new players, of course. And for those people who aren't so interested in the content and more just the explanation of the characters, I don't feel like making the videos that long. I understand that if it's at the end, they can stop watching if they want, but at the same time, some people are just going to look at the length of the video and instantly, you know, click off, which I don't want to happen. I don't want people to feel too overwhelmed just by looking at the video length and thinking, oh god, the character must be that complicated. So, that being said, I'm obviously not making all this work go down the drain. I've already almost completely edited that 20-minute segment, so it's not going away. It's just not going to be in this video. I'm going to upload it as a separate video. It kind of feels weird doing that, but again, I don't think that anyone would really be very encouraged by seeing one of these videos explaining how a survival works being over 50 minutes long. So yeah, I think it's for the best. That should come out next week, maybe even sooner, depends on how well I'm doing my videos. And I think that you'll enjoy that quite a lot. It was an absolutely crazy game. I guess I'll just give a shout out just before I end to Chris P, the developer of this mod, who has been very cooperative with these videos and very encouraging. And I might even be making a video for his website as a kind of trailer for the game in future. I'll tell you about that when I get round to it. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one, which that one should be Ellis. Don't worry, I'll get round to him, although God, I'm not sure what that's going to look like at the moment with how polarizing he is.